Today we're unpacking a behavior many parents notice but don't always know how to explain. Sometimes a child within the spectrum can sound bossy. They may give instructions, they may insist things happen a certain way, they may correct adults or tell people exactly what to do. And as a parent, you might wonder, why does my child talk to me like this? Are they being disrespectful? Are they trying to control everything? Or is something else happening beneath the surface? Before we begin, a quick reminder, we are not therapists or medical professionals. The ideas shared here come from lived parenting experiences, research, and conversations within the neurodivergent community. For individualized guidance, always consult qualified professionals. Ready? Because this is Calm Parent Collective. Less perfect parent, more real one. The moment parents notice it. Many parents first notice this behavior during everyday routines. A child might say things like,
"You have to do it this way. Don't touch that."
The tone can sound commanding even when the child doesn't appear angry. To an adult ear, it can feel like the child is trying to take charge of the entire situation, and sometimes this can trigger frustration. Parents might worry that their child is developing poor manners or learning to control the household. But for many neurodivergent kids, what looks like bossiness may actually come from a very different place. Predictability feels safe. Many children within the spectrum rely heavily on predictability. The world can feel fast, noisy, and full of unexpected changes. So when something becomes familiar, a routine, a way of doing things, a sequence of steps, that pattern becomes comforting. It helps their brain organize the environment. When someone changes that pattern, even slightly, the child may feel immediate discomfort. And the quickest way to restore order is to correct the change. From the child's perspective, they're not trying to control people. They're trying to restore predictability. The instruction they give might sound like a command, but internally it can feel more like an attempt to keep the world from becoming chaotic. Rules often feel important. Another trait many neurodivergent children share is a strong relationship with rules. Rules create structure, they reduce uncertainty. They provide a clear framework for how things should happen. When a child understands a rule, whether it's about games, routines, or daily habits, they may expect everyone else to follow it the same way. If someone breaks the rule, the child may feel compelled to point it out. This can sound like, "That's not how you do it. You're doing it wrong." To an adult, that tone can sound confrontational. But for the child, it may simply feel like protecting the system that makes the situation understandable. Language without social filters. Communication differences also play a role. Many neurodivergent children communicate very directly. They may say exactly what they're thinking without softening the message. For example, a neurotypical child might phrase a request politely,
"Can you please move that?"
but a neurodivergent child might simply say,
"Move that!"
The intention behind the message may be identical. The difference lies in how the message is delivered. Without those social filters, direct communication can sometimes come across as bossy, even when the child's goal is simply to solve a problem or express a need. Control can reduce anxiety. For some children within the spectrum, directing others is also a way to manage anxiety. When a child feels uncertain about what might happen next, they may try to influence the situation by telling others what to do. If they can guide the steps of the interaction, the outcome becomes more predictable. Predictability lowers stress. In that sense, what appears to be controlling behavior can actually be a form of self-regulation. The child is trying to stabilize their environment using the tools they currently have. Why it often happens most with parents. Interestingly, this bossy behavior often shows up most strongly with parents. There are a few reasons for that. First, parents are the safest people in a child's world. Children often save their biggest emotions and most unfiltered communication for the people they trust most. Second, home is where routines are most established. If a child has learned a specific way that bedtime, meals, or day activities happen, they may feel more comfortable enforcing those patterns at home. Finally, parents are often the people children expect to understand them. So when communication feels urgent or important, the child may speak very directly without realizing how it sounds. Teaching flexibility without shame. When parents hear commanding language from their child, the instinct may be to correct it quickly. But how we correct matters. If the response focuses only on tone, saying something like, "Don't talk like that," the child may feel confused about what exactly needs to change. Instead, many families find it helpful to model alternative phrasing. For example, if a child says, "Give it to me," a parent might respond with,
You can say, "Can I have it, please?"
This approach doesn't shame the child, it simply introduces a different communication option. Over time, with repetition and gentle modeling, many children begin to understand that how we say something can affect how people respond. Balancing understanding with boundaries. Understanding the reasons behind bossy behavior doesn't mean ignoring it. Children still need guidance about respectful communication. But when we understand the underlying drivers, predictability, anxiety, direct communication styles, we can respond with more clarity and less frustration. Instead of interpreting the behavior as intentional disrespect, we see it as a skill that is still developing. And when skills are still developing, the most helpful response is patient teaching. What parents can remember. If your neurodivergent child sometimes sounds bossy, you're not alone. Many families experience this dynamic, and in most cases, the behavior is not about power or control. It's about trying to keep things predictable, protecting familiar rules, communicating needs directly, or managing anxiety in the moment. Understanding those layers doesn't erase the challenge, but it does change the way we respond. And often, that shift creates more cooperation than constant correction ever could. Parenting a child within the spectrum often means learning to look beyond the surface of behavior. What sounds bossy may actually be a child trying to organize a confusing world. What sounds demanding may simply be direct communication without the social filters many of us learned over time. Here at Kind Parent Collective, we believe that understanding the why behind behavior is one of the most powerful tools parents have. Because when we move from assumption to curiosity, we create space for growth, not just for our children, but for ourselves as parents too. And that kind of growth always begins with compassion. And if today was rough, you still did enough. Catch you on the next one.